just noticed an ever so slight chill in the air the last few mornings, and I am totally here for it. I love the fall, so let's bring on the whip parade. I'll see you on the other side. Welcome and thank you for joining me for episode 28 of Gary Knits, Gary Rides, a Craftivism podcast at the intersection of making things and doing good. My name is Gary. I'm a knitter and a crocheter. I am also a cyclist and fundraiser for AIDS Lifecycle, an annual 7-day, 545-mile bike ride from San Francisco to Los Angeles, supporting the life-saving work of the San Francisco AIDS Foundation and the Los Angeles LGBT Center. As part of my fundraising, I run a series of Knitalongs and Crochetalongs, which we're going to talk all about today, as well as an occasional fiber auction on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram at Gary Knits, Gary Rides. You can also find me on Ravelry as Gary Knits and Rides, where we have a Ravelry group for the Knitalongs and Crochetalongs. I have had a fantastic couple of weeks. Summer is winding down. It's sunny today, but we've had, like I said, a little bit of a chill in the air. It's California, so the variation, or Southern California, the variation in temperature is not very much throughout the year, but I noticed when we're a few degrees cooler in the morning, so I'm really looking forward to a little bit of cooler weather. And I've started a bunch of projects that just scream fall, so we're going to get into all of that. I hope you've had a fantastic couple of weeks as well. Summer's winding down. We had a house guest for a week or so, and we got to play tourists here around the Los Angeles area. We got to see our final Hollywood Bowl concerts of the season. We saw Boy George and Culture Club, along with Berlin, who opened for them. Sadly, it wasn't as good as I was expecting. Boy George's voice has suffered from years of rough living. When he slowed down and when he sang some new songs, he actually sounded pretty good. But when he tried to sing the big hits at the speed at which they were originally recorded, he just didn't seem to have the stamina. Anyway, it was a fun night, and we wrapped it up by seeing My Morning Jacket and Fleet Foxes, which were actually really a great show. So that's the other thing, really fun thing that we did while our friend from Italy was in town is we went to the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, which is right behind the Paramount lots in Hollywood, and it's famous. A lot of famous people are buried there, but during the summer they have, on one of the big lawns, they show movies, and so we got to see Poltergeist in a cemetery, which was it was a lot of fun. It was packed with people, but it was just kind of a fun setting to see a scary movie. So that was a great way to kind of wrap up the summer. We typically take our vacation after Labor Day, September or October, so that's coming up here in a little bit. Probably will change my recording schedule a bit because I'm not going to try to record one of these things on vacation. So I may do a quick little episode next week before we hit the road, and then it'll probably be 2 full weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks before I'm able to record again. But I'll try to get another one of these done before we head out. I'm looking forward to taking a little break from the dog and our normal activities, and getting to do some fun things on the road. In terms of events and things that are going on, as I mentioned up front, I host a series of Knitalongs and Crochetalongs. We just kicked off season 3 of the End AIDS Knitalongs and Crochetalongs. We have 7 projects, 5 independent dyers, 5 indie designers who have put together fantastic projects and yarn kits for those. I'm not going to go through each. Well, I am going to go through most of them because I'm working on them, but I'm not going to detail all of the projects that we're working on. There is a separate video for that. I'll pop a link of it up here that you can watch and kind of see what we're doing. all of the, well, that's not true. There are a couple of the dyers that still have some yarn kits available. I will mention those when we get to them. But all the pre-orders for the yarn kits have closed. But there is still plenty of time to join us. The Crochetalongs and Knitalongs run until the end of October. You are welcome to use any yarn that you would like. All you'll need to do is grab a entry ticket from my Ko-fi page or coffee page. That is the fundraising piece of this, or part of it at least, and then grab one of the patterns and jump in. We do a weekly Zoom call every Tuesday afternoon/evening, depending on where you are. It starts at 7 p.m. East Coast time, 4 p.m. out west. And we just sit around and kind of show off what we're working on and chit-chat. And we have some really advanced knitters there who are actually able to help folks with problems they might encounter along the way. So it's a fun, very chill group. The information is all linked down below, along with absolutely everything that I am going to talk about today. All of that will be in the show notes. I will pop a QR code up here. So if you're watching this on your television, you can scan that and get right to the show notes. We're also running a accessories drive for Knit the Rainbow. We're going to hear more about that at the end, where I'm going to sit down with the founder and CEO of Knit the Rainbow just to talk about that organization and the many different ways that you can help. But we are running an accessories drive from now until mid-December. There is a document that will be linked down below that has all the information you need in terms of how to track your donations, because there are prizes and there's going to be giveaways along the way. So if you want to participate in all that fun stuff and win some great yarn and things, because there are some pretty amazing prizes, including a full advent for whoever makes the most donations to Knit the Rainbow in terms of knitted accessories. All that's going to be in the document. It'll run through, as I said, December 15th. Hats, scarves, mittens, gloves, socks, even cardigans, if you are willing and able to knit a cardigan. All of those to be donated to homeless LGBTQ plus youth in New York, Chicago, and Detroit. So stay tuned to the end to watch a little conversation I had with Austin Rivers, who's the CEO of Knit the Rainbow. But that is going to be running for the next couple months, and I'm really excited about hopefully this little community helping to make this the biggest year ever for Knit the Rainbow. So those are kind of the events that we've going on. The D-Stash for Good auction that I mentioned as something that happens occasionally as a fundraiser for me. You can find that over on Instagram at D-Stash for Good. We just wrapped up the first D-Stash auction of this AIDS Lifecycle fundraising season. It was a huge success with some rounding up and some people who geniusly were able to use their donations that they used to pay for yarn in the D-Stash auction, and then match that with a corporate matching from their employer. With those sort of increases, we were able to raise over $4,500 for this first go round. So very excited about that. We had almost 300 items. I think a lot of people got a lot of really great bargains, but also got a lot of great yarn, and we raised a lot of money. So it was sort of a win-win-win for everyone. There will be another D-Stash for Good auction shortly. I'm looking at specific dates, but tentatively, I would say we're going to open up for listings starting on November 8th, with the goal of kicking off the actual auction on Black Friday. And that will run then for a couple of weeks, get wrapped up so that we can get all of the shipping and everything done before we get knee deep into the holiday season. So stay tuned for that. I will definitely let you know when I'm officially opening the listings for that as well. And I think that's about it on the event side. We've got a lot of knitting and crocheting to get through, as I mentioned. With the Knitalong and Crochetalong, I've got a lot of projects that I've started, but I actually have an FO to kick off with. What am I wearing? I am wearing the Knit Chat Cowl by Chit Chat Knits. I made this as part of a Knitalong that Carrie over at the Creative Obsession was running. I was using this as a potential alternative for a shawl. I was hoping to have The Sunwalker shawl by Melanie Berg is the next big shawl that I'm planning to make for myself. I have the yarn all picked up. It's all caked up and ready to go, but it is a 3 skein fingering weight shawl. And because of some of the other things, obviously the Knitalong and Crochetalong stuff that I have going on, as well as a big project, I didn't think I was going to be able to tackle and complete that 3 skein fingering weight shawl by the time Rhinebeck came around. And so I thought, oh, well, this would be a nice alternative just to have a little single skein cowl. It used self-striping yarn, which I also was really interested in, because I'm always interested in patterns other than socks that I can use my growing supply of self-striping yarn, sock yarn for. And so she was doing a knit along for this, so I decided to jump in. It is a really fun and easy pattern, a little different shape than most of the cowls I've knit before. It is sort of bandana-ish in terms of there's this row of increases that runs through the center spine here, that gives it some extra length in the front, but without a lot of bulk in the back, which is very nice. If you've watched the last couple episodes, you heard me say that I was not maybe thrilled with my choice of yarn. This is a Zauberball Crazy in some color that's a 4-digit number that I don't know, but it was colors that work with a lot of what I wear, which is a lot of navy and olive green and things like that. But it seemed a little, not rustic, but just a little stiff. It wasn't really soft and to the touch. That definitely changed significantly with blocking. So it softened up the yarn. Now, I would not say this is MCN, soft to the skin. It is definitely still a little stiff, but it definitely is much better than when I was working it. So I'm very happy with the way it turned out. I did mess up somewhere down here towards the end, and my stitch count was off a little bit, and so my the end of mine kind of jogs off to one edge of the other. But I think, who's going to notice if you're that close and looking at the final rounds of stitches? Then maybe we have other things to discuss. But I think this will be nice. I think you'll get some use out of it when I'm up in Rhinebeck for Rhinebeck weekend, if the weather cooperates and we get some nice chilly fall East Coast weather. If not, I think it's a great little piece to throw into a bag if I am headed somewhere where I'm not really sure what the temperature is going to be. If it could be a little chill in the air, around here, because it's typically a little bit warmer. I like having a shawl that I can kind of move off and on and off, put on my shoulders if it's not quite that cold. So I don't know that I'll wear it a ton around here, but I like the colors and I like the pattern. I would love to see. I saw Carrie's latest episode with her friend, and they were showing off theirs, and they did one of them. Her friend did it in a brighter colors. Carrie's was more sort of like this, more dark navy and gray. But it would be fun to see this in some of my really bright, wild self-striping yarn to see how that played out. But it's a really fun, quick, easy little pattern. So highly recommend that if you're looking for a cowl with a little different shape than what at least I've typically made in the cowl space. So that is the one and only FO. We can get into the Knitalong and Crochetalong stuff, and I'm going to show another FO that I've shown before, just to mention, goodbye yarn, that this yarn is still available. And so this is the Palm Springs cowl by Casey Knits. Love this pattern, great first colorwork pattern. But I just heard from Nancy at Trilogy Yarn, who dyed up yarn kits for the cowl in Eggplant, which is the dark purple, and Sand Dune, which is the neutral. And she still has some available on her website. She is basically donating the shipping cost. So whatever you pay in shipping, she is going to donate to AIDS Lifecycle, which is fantastic. And she said she'll keep them up, as long as they're up on the website, she will continue to make those donations. So if you haven't had a chance, it's sport weight, 2 skeins of sport weight yarn. You can make 2 of the Palm Springs cowls. So you make it this way, and then you make it the reverse. So the darker color is the main color. again, highly recommend. Just to mention, Casey also has a new shawl pattern out today as I'm recording this. It's called the BRB shawl, so I think it means be right back shawl. 2 skeins of DK weight. So again, it could be a really quick project. Really cute textured shawl in a nice, kind of extended triangular shape, I think, but it looks really cute. So check that out if you are in the market for a quick shawl pattern. So that is one of the Knitalong and Crochetalong projects. So let's just kind of walk through. I went ahead and I wanted to get them all going. Obviously, I finished the cowl. I was doing that as a sample just to show it off in the yarn. But I wanted to get them all going, and then I'm going to kind of pick and choose how they get worked, because I think some are more appropriate for travel and vacation knitting, and the other ones we're just gonna have to sit unfinished here for a week or so until I get back. This is the first one, is a crochet project. This is the Save Da Bun hat. I'll pop up a picture here of what the finished project looks like in the colorway that I'm doing it. This is in Jada Woo Designs silk merino light worsted weight, the Curiosity kit. So this main variegated color here is called Curiosity, and then this is called Honey Nut, and then the third color is a brown. I'll pull it out here in just a second, called Fawn. So this is crochet, and I'm learning all sorts of new things. In fact, I've stopped at a point where I'm about to have to learn a new stitch for me, which includes like dipping down several rows. So I'm excited to learn that new skill. The other thing that I learned, which I because I oftentimes don't read ahead in the patterns, I just start going. And you get the pattern is chain on, and you start doing 6 stitches, and I know it says you're doing the ribbing, and I'm like, I don't understand how this 6-stitch thing is going to grow into like something that fits around your head. Well, you're doing it this way, and then you join all the ribbing in a band to make the headband. So far so good. It's really been fun. I love kind of a bigger weight yarn project because it just goes so quickly. So I'm going to probably continue. I'm going to learn that new stitch in Tanya's pattern, and probably try to maybe crank this out before vacation. With the 3 skeins of the light worsted yarn, you can make 3 complete hats. I think what I'm going to do is make one as a hat. Now it's a little big for me. I can already see it'd be very easy to sort of shrink the size to tighten it up a little bit if you have a tiny little head like me. So I think I'm gonna make one as a hat. This is gonna go to Knit the Rainbow, so having it fit me does not really matter. And then I think what I'm gonna do is make the ribbing longer and use up 2 hats worth of the rest of the yarn and make it more of a drapey cowl, and have that maybe to keep for myself and send the hat off to Knit the Rainbow. I'm going to leave it open so it's a bun hat, because I imagine maybe some of the clients from Knit the Rainbow might have buns and might enjoy that. So, and then maybe I'll see about keeping the cowl for myself. So that is Saved a Bun by Yarn Gone Wild Yarncraft. Tanya at Yarn Gone Wild Yarncraft has some really amazing headgear patterns. So I'm really enjoying this one so far. This yarn is a dream to work with. It's so soft and silky. Oh, sorry, I said I was going to show you the fawn. So that is the third color is this sort of fawn colored, tan, beige, fawny color. So that is whip number 1 from the Knitalong Crochetalong. The second one that I have living in my Scrappy Angel bag, and I forget the name of this bag. It's the smallest one. Angel from Scrappy Angel just started her own YouTube channel, which covers knitting and her quilting as well as her bag making. Great first episode. And she's about to do a shop update, which this is one of my favorite bags. I think it's a perfect size for a lot of different projects. and I love the wireframe in it. I can't remember what the name of this one's. They all have like women's names, I think. Erin is the big one. I think that's Erin for like Chip and Erin. But I can't remember which this one's called. But it's perfect size, little foxes. And living in here is my pair of socks, the Embracing Our Nature socks from Samba Knits. I will pop a picture up here of what they're going to look like. Those are shown in the Hope colorway from Porter Wool Co., which is the color that Caitlin at Porter Wool Co. Created especially for the pattern. I think the little micro speckles in that green are going to look great in that cable. Obviously, you can see they look great. But since I am trying to knit more from stash, I did buy the yarn because I'm always going to buy the yarn from any of the dyers who are supporting me to support them. But it went into the booty stash, so someone down the road in one of the giveaways for the Knitalong Crochetalong will be able to grab that as their prize. And I am doing mine in another Porter Wool color called Petal Party Remix. So it is this very similar to the fawn in the crochet pattern, but with these bursts of like a berry color along with maybe hard to see there in this light, but there's some flecks of like a gold. So there's some right there. So I've had this for a while, been waiting for a perfect project for it, and I think this will be great. It'll be interesting to see how the cables play with these longer bursts of color versus the little micro speckles in the Hope colorway. So I'll talk a little bit about how I'm doing this. If you've been watching all year, you know that at the beginning of the year, one of my, not resolutions, but intentions was to become a more skilled and prolific sock knitter. I was taking baby steps. I think I said I wanted to knit 4 pair of socks this year. This would be my 3rd, so that means I got to crank out 1 more pair before the end of the year when I finish this up. And I've been trying different methods. So I did the Drunken Knitters 1 giant tube, 2 socks in 1, I think is the name of the book. I tried that. I've done that method. I did the resolution socks at the beginning of year, worsted weight. I did those on 9-inch circular needles, I believe. And I think, or maybe I did those on magic loop 1 at a time. And so one of the things I wanted to try is doing 2 at a time and do it on 2 small circular needles. So this is my first ever attempt at a toe up sock, and also my first attempt at 2 at a time on 2 circular needles. I found getting the cast on done particularly fiddly, and using Judy's Magic Cast On. And I did it a couple times, trying to do both of them at the same time. And then someone, I think it was actually Caitlin of Porter Wool Co., suggested that maybe I get one started on magic loop, do a few rounds of the increases, slip it over to the 2 circular needles, and then do the second one, same thing. And so that's what I have done. That seemed to work pretty well. There was a little kind of where I had to take it, put it on one needle, and then put on these. I couldn't do the direct transfer on the second sock, and I was trying to get this done to be able to show, and so I didn't want to like sit down and think about how I could have probably done it with 1 fewer steps. But so far so good. I've got about half of the increases done on these, and then I will be ready to go. I think that's about as far as I'm going to get all the toe increases done, and then just kind of leave them, because this is going to be definitely not travel friendly knitting for me. At least the first time through. Maybe at some point down the road, maybe it would be, but this is a lot of things flopping around. 4 needle points, 2 balls of yarn. I think it would be quickly become a bit of a disaster on a plane or in a car. So that's it. The Embracing Our Nature socks. This is Porter Wool Co.'s Petal Party Remix. Looking forward to another pair of cabled socks. I enjoyed doing the resolution socks at the beginning of the year, and it'll just be fun to do them on a much smaller needle, much smaller needle this time. Anyone have any tips on 2 at a time, toe up on 2 circular needles? Let me know. I feel like I'm kind of through the hardest part of it, at least until we get to the heel flap and gusset. So anyway, those are the socks. The other knitting project that I have for the Knitalong is the Stars Align hat, which also has a pair of mittens that match it. Here's the picture of the 2 of those from Melissa K Designs, and I have cast on the hat in Monica of UP North Yarns. I had been saying up north, but she joined me on live on Cast On Day and said that she prefers to it as UP North Yarns since she is in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. That's how it got its name. So the variegated where I've done on the brim is Morning Glories. The contrast color, which is the white with speckles, is called Speckled Jewels. This is the Star Aligned hat. I'm really having fun with this. I love seeing these little star patterns emerge as you go along. I've got the pattern down now. I did somewhere make a mistake, and so some of them are a little off kilter, but I think we're back on track. One thing I would mention, so I'm making the second from largest size. I think it says it's an adult medium. It looks really big. Now I have not, in fact, I was just looking at it. I'm going to go through and count and figure it out. I did not go back once I started the star pattern to see what my gauge is on the star pattern, because again, this is going to knit the rainbow. Whether or not it fit me is kind of irrelevant. But I do know that if I were making it for myself, I would need to go down a size in terms of the pattern size, go down a needle size or something. So I'm going to check the gauge and just kind of see where it shakes out. But a couple of people on the Zoom call had a similar situation. So they were knitting one size that was sort of the size they would normally knit, and the number of stitches that Melissa has you cast on seemed relatively large, and it doesn't seem like the star pattern really pulls in like you might think. If you look, it might look big at the bottom, but it's going to pull in at the top. It doesn't really look like it's going to pull in any tighter than the ribbing. So just something to be aware of if you are knitting this pattern. Either swatch, make sure you get gauge. You may have to go down a needle size or 2, or just go down a size smaller maybe than you think you need, because it does seem a little big. I mean, it's not like coming over my whole head like a cowl, but it's a little looser than I would typically wear for a hat. But I'm enjoying the pattern. This is going on vacation, so I'm going to stop here on this one. Like I said, I've got the pattern. It's a four row repeat, pretty straightforward. The special stitch is, once you get going, it's pretty it's very easy to memorize and pretty quick to replicate. So I think this will be great plain and card knitting, just round and round and round until I get to the decreases. I will definitely probably have this finished up by the time we get home. So Stars Align hats. I will then start the mittens when I get back with the 2 skeins of, I should say it's a DK weight pattern. Here, I'll just show you the yarn. But this is the Speckled Jewels. This is the Morning Glories. So 2 skeins of DK weight yarn. You can make both the hat and the mittens. I think the way that we decided it works is if you do the brim of the hat in one color, so I'm using the Morning Glories, that you would do the ribbing on the mittens as using the other color. So that's how you get the 2 out of the 2 skeins. So those will be eventual Knit the Rainbow donations as part of the accessory drive for me, because definitely don't need mittens around here, and a DK weight hat is about as heavy as I would wear. But these aren't really my colors. And this is living in my Seattle Dye Works I Feel Nitty Witty and Gay drawstring bag that I picked up at the Flock Fiber Festival. Last, but certainly not least, because I'm really having fun with this, is the other mitt and hat combo, which is the crochet one. This is from Cerulean Orchid, Jean Ann at Cerulean Orchid was the designer, or is the designer of this. It is being done in the colorway that Teal Torch Knits dyed up, called After the Storm. So it is this pale gray with teeny tiny little specks of kind of neon colors. I'm so happy with the way that this yarn is knitting up in this pattern, just because the specks are so tiny that it really just as these like teeny tiny little, almost like sprinkles like on a cupcake, or confetti, just little teeny tiny little pops of color. So you don't get really more than a single stitch in any of those colors, which I absolutely love. Again, skill builder for me. I am not a confident crocheter. I was joking on the Zoom call last night that every time I have a crochet pattern, unless it's just straight back and forth, I end up crocheting it twice, because every time I do a row or a round, I never know if I've gotten it right until I get to the end of that round, and the first time is usually wrong and I have to rip it out and do it again, which is great practice. And I've kind of typically that would frustrate me, and I think if it were knitting, it probably would frustrate me if every single row I had to go back and redo again. But for some reason with crochet, I've just kind of accepted it as part of my crochet process. And there are some new things here that I've done Magic Circle before. I've never really done a top-down beanie. I've used it for little toys and things like that. I always have to look it up. I can't remember how to do it. It, kind of freaks me out every time I see Start with Magic Circle. And you're doing a lot of front post, back post, double crochets in here to get this sort of ribbing effect, and which I think once I get into it are going to emerge as these sort of like little mini tiny little cables. So I've done most of these rounds twice, but I think I'm finally kind of getting how the pattern is working. So it's not having a better sense each round if I'm doing it right or doing it wrong, but still I never know until I get to that last stitch. So I think that the plan here is to get through all of the increases, and then I think you kind of work straight down the body of the hat. Try to get that all the increases and stuff done before we head off on vacation. But again, I don't think this is going to come with me. Just too much concentration and not in dark spaces and moving in vehicles. I just don't think it's going to be something that is going to be something I can work on. So I'm going to try to get through all the increases, get started on the body, and then when I come home, it'll be just like straight through to the ribbing at the bottom. So Rainbow Eucalyptus Hat and Mitts by Cerulean Orchid in After the Storm by Teal Torch Knits. That is our second Crochetalong project for the End Age Crochetalong. So living in my yarn and whiskey bag, which I love. And that is it for the Knitalong and Crochetalong projects. I mentioned that one of the reasons why I didn't think I was going to be able to get that 3-skein fingering weight shawl pattern done before Rhinebeck was because I had a big project, and that is my Rhinebeck sweater, which we're making very good progress on. So this is the Painting Honeycombs sweater by Stephen West. I have, it's all tangled up, sorry. I have all but finished the first sweater. So I finished all of the decreases on the first sleeve, I should say. So here we go. We've got all of the decreases done very professional using all these little markers. And I am through the first set of decreases for the second sleeve. So as I mentioned, I think on the last episode, I've been getting expert advice along the way from Valerie, Creations by Valerie on Instagram, a Visit with Nana and Papa here on YouTube. She's an amazing sweater knitter and very comfortable with making modifications, and knew that I was nervous about going through all the work of making a sweater and then being frustrated that it didn't fit me the way I wanted to. So she's been very helpful in having me continue to try it on, tweak things, do some short rows here, increases there to sort of make it fit. I will say we probably could have done a little more increasing around kind of the underarms. It's a little snug there. I mean, it's going to grow a little bit, I'm sure. And I think I'm going to try to compensate a bit for that by just making it a little bit longer and the sleeves a little bit longer so that when I do raise my arms that they're, it's not just coming back up to my forearm. But I did planned and executed the sleeve decreases, not according to the pattern that Stephen West wrote, but and I didn't actually even consult with Valerie. I just kind of did all the math on my own, which I was pretty excited about being able to do. And I think it's worked out. There goes a stitch stopper. I think it's worked out pretty well. So the way I did it was I did 2 sets of decreases. So I did one kind of on the upper arm down to the elbow and then tapered it a little bit more headed down to the wrist. So I think I've got about 3 inches left for ribbing at the end of this first sleeve. I want to get the second sleeve completely done up to the same point, put it back on, see how much ribbing, if I want to do maybe a little bit more in stockinette. I think Stephen West has you do like 6 inches of ribbing, but I just didn't want all of that a long piece of ribbing. So I think 3 inches is probably fine. And then I think what I'm going to do is, and I need to look into how to actually accomplish this. Oh my gosh, I'm getting all tangled up. Is to use this contrasting yarn, which is fully spun rum punch, and just do a little contrast at the ribbing at the hem of the cuff. And so I'm looking into maybe like a tubular bind off or something like that down there on the 1x1 ribbing, just so it has a little pop of color at the wrists and then also at the waist. I'm going to try to do the same thing. So the goal here is I will be finished with this sleeve this week. I'm going tonight to a local knit night, and I'm going to take this with me just because it's round and round and every few rows do a decrease. So I think that'll be pretty easy to do while I'm sitting and chit-chatting with people. I'm sure I will knit past one of the decreases, which I've done over and over again, and have to tink back and fix it. But much better than trying to do, teeny tiny crochet or something like that while I'm talking. So I will probably have, if not tonight, definitely by tomorrow evening, I'll have this second sleeve done, be able to try it on, figure out what we need to do for the balance of the sleeves, and I probably will hold off, maybe keep those on the barber cords, and then get back to the body, and then do the body down to where the ribbing would start there, try it all on again, and then maybe when we're back from vacation, just finish up all the ribbing and be done with it before I'll have a few weeks before Rhinebeck. So I'm really excited with how it's turning out. It is done in Shibui Knits Haven, which is the blue in the colorway is Suit. So that's, I think, an 80% merino non-superwash and 20% cashmere, or 90-10, something like that. It's very soft. It feels like it's going to be very warm. So I'm fingers crossed that we get cool weather at Rhinebeck so I can actually wear it and enjoy it. And then, as I mentioned, the contrasting color is fully spun rum punch, both DK weight. So very happy with the way it's turned out. Very grateful for Valerie for helping me do the modifications because I do think I'm going to end up with a sweater that fits me the way I wanted to, versus I think if I'd stuck with the pattern in the size that I chose and just knit straight through, which is kind of how I would normally do things. I'm a big proponent of the first time you make a recipe, first time you knit a pattern, to follow the instructions and then tweak it the second time around. But she's absolutely right. There's not going to be a second time around on the sweater if you hate the first one. So I'm glad I'm going to get something that I think is going to fit me well. So Painting Honeycombs by Stephen West for Rhinebeck. So that is it in terms of the FOs and whips. I thought I would talk a second about what is around the corner in terms of projects. I'm sure every single person who is watching this is aware that the Stephen West Mystery Knitalong is in the teasing phase of the project. So he's talked about that it's going to be a gradient. It's called GeoGradient, and he's released all of his kits and been out there with some with color advice. And of course, the day that he dropped the yardages and kind of what the color choices would look like, I had to dig out the bins and started digging through the stash to find potential kits for mine, because I'm definitely going to start it. It could end up like last year where I started and ended relatively quickly, but I do want to start it because I think it's just a fun project. Even if you don't love the end result. I've only made one to completion, which I do love, but I think that it's still just a fun process, and you learn a lot along the way. So if you saw on my Instagram, I had dug out of stash a couple of sort of a couple of palettes. So one was greens and one was blues. And typically, blues would have definitely been my go-to, because I wear a lot of blue and I have a lot of blue in the stash. As I've said before, I rarely pass up a skein of navy yarn in not buying it. But and then the greens were mainly from a kit that I bought 2 MCALs ago for shawlography. It was a kit from Undercover. I bought it from Stephen and Penelope, and it was a kit from Undercover Otter. And then I just changed my mind at the last minute and decided that I wanted to use the Magpie Fiber stuff that I used for my shawlography. So I had that, and it's like a gradient. So those were the 2 choices I put together. Finally narrowed it down, and I had a blue palette that kind of went from like a pale blue through a very, very dark navy, and then I had the greens. And it was a 5 skein set from the greens, so I was only going to choose 4. And I think that's where I've landed, is to use the Undercover Otter set. It's on a yak silk base, so it's going to be super drapey, and I think I'm going to love the fabric. And these are the 4 that I think I've settled on. The 5th color is a darker, so this is kind of showing up very gray here, but it's called Rosemary, and it's definitely got a green hue. The 5th color in the kit was a definite like gray, and so I think that these 4 look great together. And not only am I excited to use this yarn, I love Undercover Otter's color sense, and I just think this base is absolutely delicious to. I can only imagine what it is to work with, because it's great in the skein. The other thing is the Melanie Berg sweater that I'm not getting around to knit for Rhinebeck is going to be blue. It's in Treehouse Knit's Most Metal Ever from her Stranger Things collection. So if you know that, it is a dark blue with some silvery flecks, and I've got it on tweed. So I thought that making a blue MCAL and then making that one as the next big shawl, that as much as I love navy, then I would have a lot of navy in the shawl arsenal, and it might be nice to have something fun and like a little more pop of color. And I think this will also go with a lot of the stuff that I wear. So that's where we're gonna be. I'm going to cake it up before vacation, not take it with me to get started when things kick off, but in that first week I'll be back and I'll be able to start, and it'll give me the benefit of at least seeing the first clue. And I'm hopeful that it's not like one of those where I'm like, oh, this first clue I hate. I do have to go back and reflect on shawlography and when I started that, and even though I loved all the colors I had chosen, the first couple of clues, I was like, ooh, I don't really love how these are all playing together. By the end of it, I loved it all. I do think I made the right choice by scrapping my twists and turns. Again, I liked all the colors I chose, but I didn't like them in that first clue the way they were playing together. I've seen some beautiful twists and turns. I will say that I think of all of the MCAL shawls that I've seen, I think that one has the biggest sort of miss to hit ratio in terms of things that I like and that I would wear. But it all came down to people's color choices. But some people made some excellent choices and turned out some beautiful ones. But I think I made the right choice by not pursuing that. I've taken all that yarn. It's going to go into a different Stephen West project. I picked some yarn up in Maryland sheep and wool to make a marled project that I think is going to be great at some point down the road. But I think the Undercover Otter Green is going to be a really fun kit to use for the MCAL. So the other thing that is on the on deck circle, yes, I did just start an MCAL or a CAL that has 7 projects, and I started most of them. Yes, I have my Rhinebeck sweater, and yes, I'm trying to do Knit the Rainbow Accessories Drive, but I really want a new shawl to take to Rhinebeck. It's not going to be the 3 skein fingering weight shawl, and I don't know what I was doing the other day or where I saw, but something popped up. I think I was just scrolling through my queue for some other reason, and this shawl popped up. So it's called Orbit by Janina Kalilo, I think is her name. Woolberry or Woolenberry. Sorry, Woolenberry. Here's Janina Kalilo, and it is a 1 skein DK weight shawl. Now there's a fair amount of eyelets in it. It's not huge, but it does say it's about a little over 5 feet long and like 15 inches deep. So it's a nice small shawl, but it's a single skein of DK weight. It's done on size 8 needles, so I think that creates a looser fabric. And given kind of what I've gone through here, the only real project that I was like, well, that's a definite take with me on vacation project is the Stars Line hat. So I had contemplated taking my sweater with me if I wasn't far enough along in it, but I think it's going to be all but ribbing done, and so I'm not going to take that bulky sweater with me on the trip. And so I was like, well, I could probably take another project. I could take just some Knit the Rainbow charity hats, and I probably will. Oh, I actually have. Sorry, I have another whip to show you, but I'll get there. I'll come back to it. And so I saw this shawl, and I was like, this would be perfect. Like, it's perfect travel. It's 1 skein. It's DK weight. It looks like it's a pretty straightforward pattern. I've read through it now. It is a very straightforward pattern. And at the end of the day, I could have a nice little shawl to take with me to Rhinebeck if the weather's not too cool. Having a light little shawl would be nice. I'll probably pack a bigger shawl. And so it just seemed like a no-brainer. So I haven't cast on yet, but I did dig. I barely opened my tub of variegated DK weight yarn and found this absolutely right up the Gary alley in terms of colors. Navies and olives with a little mustard in there. From Life in the Long Grass. It's called Marshes. I believe I picked this up, and I'm going to forget the name of the store. It's a little yarn store in the West Village of New York. When I was there on a business trip a couple years ago, I'd never been in the store. I popped in and grabbed this yarn. And it has more than enough. I mean, this is a 250 yards. I think that the pattern is written was only like 220 yards, so it should be plenty. We'll see. I'm shocked that you can get a shawl, even a modest size shawl out of a single skein of DK weight, and I may end up with a kerchief. I don't know, but I'm very excited that I will have a little shawl to take with me to Rhinebeck that's new. That's one that I will also get a ton of wear out of otherwise, and that I'll have a great project to take with me on the trip. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to cake it up and probably cast on a couple days before we go, just to get it all started, and then we will see how it goes. If it works, and if it's a nice size shawl, having a single skein DK weight shawl that makes a decent sized shawl is fantastic in my book. So I said I had another whip that I'd forgotten about. It is a charity hat, Knit the Rainbow. I am making the Coffee Top Toque by Grocery Girls. Not by Grocery Girls, by Tracy, I think, of the Grocery, Tracy Miller. Grocery Girls. This is some yarn that someone had sent me to D-Stash, but it wasn't in great shape in terms of something that I thought that I could resell on the D-Stash for good, because one of the rules of the D-Stash is it can be caked, but you need to have the original label. And this one was sold in balls. I can't even remember what it's called, but some commercial. Oh, here it is, called Knitalong Trends. But it was kind of this one looks okay, but the second ball was kind of unwound and messy looking, so I didn't think I could sell it. So I decided I would just make it into to hats for Knit the Rainbow. So this is the Coffee Top Toque. Really fun, really easy. I think that it would probably look better in just a regular variegated yarn, which is how Tracy shows it, or in even a solid, because it's very textured, and some of that gets lost in the striping of this yarn. So the other ball that I have, I will also take with me on the trip, and it'll just be turned into like a plain vanilla beanie, so that the striping does more of the work. But this is a great, so far so good. This is a great pattern that will definitely be entering the charity knit stable of patterns that I knit up for charity hats. So that is that. Living in my little camo bag. So that is well and truly it for whips and FOs. And so we're going to move on to the Craftivism piece of the program. As I mentioned up front, the big thing is my accessories drive for Knit the Rainbow. It is going to run from now until December 15th. Linked down below is the document that walks through all of the game piece of it, so all the prizes and the giveaway and how that all is going to work. One thing I will say, I think I indicated when I announced this, and probably maybe I'll have to reread the text of that, but my original idea was for everyone to kind of hold on to all of their items so they could sort of photograph them and document them before we sent them to Knit the Rainbow mid-December. I would say now, if you can and want to participate in the giveaway piece of things, document them as you go, and when you get a nice bag full of them, go ahead and send those on. In my conversation with Austin, you will hear him say that they do 3 or 4 distributions throughout the year, and they love to get things up front so that first distribution, as things are starting to get colder in the cities that they serve, that they have a nice amount of items to hand off to the agencies that they work with. So to the degree that you can, take your photo of your pile of hats and scarves and whatever you have, jot them down on the tally sheet, and then ship them off kind of more as you have them to Knit the Rainbow, or to drop them off at your local yarn store. You're going to hear a little bit about how that program works as well. So without further ado, I'm going to, with further ado, because one thing I forgot to chat with Austin about is where he will be during Rhinebeck weekend. So in addition to being able to win some prizes through my accessories drive, another way that you can double dip and win some prizes is through Indie Untangled. If you go to the Indie Untangled Instagram or their website, they're doing a number of different giveaways around their 10th anniversary as an event during Rhinebeck weekend. And one of the ways that you can win prizes is by donating items to Knit the Rainbow that are knit in yarn from vendors who have appeared at Indie Untangled over the past 10 years, and they have a whole list of them. So go through your stash, through your scraps, if you have scraps from some of those vendors that you have, and you can turn it into a hat and turn that in. You can get a chance to win some prizes at Indie Untangled if you're going to go there. Austin himself will be at Woolen Folk, where they will have a table, and I'm sure they will be taking donations at their table at Woolen Folk. So if you're going to be at the Rhinebeck weekend and on the Friday, going to Indie Untangled or Woolen Folk, look for both of those places where you can drop your items as well. But don't forget to document them if you want to win prizes from me. And maybe next time I do this, maybe as part of my little short episode before vacation, I'll kind of talk about some of the prizes that I have lined up for the Knit the Rainbow Accessories Drive. We're going to do some random giveaways, and then there's going to be some that are based on the point system that's in the document. So now, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to myself and Austin to learn more about Knit the Rainbow. I just wanted to welcome Austin Rivers, who is the founder and CEO of Knit the Rainbow, to chat a little bit about the organization and all the amazing work that you are doing. As you know, we just kicked off an accessories drive for Knit the Rainbow that's going to run from now beginning of September through mid-December. So we're hoping to be able to make and collect as many items for the organization as possible. But although people hear me talk about Knit the Rainbow a lot, I thought it'd be great to hear from straight from the horse's mouth in terms of the organization and the work they're doing. So before we get into Knit the Rainbow, I always like to start with everyone's fiber origin story and sort of how you came to this community.
Thanks, Gary. First of all, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here and talk with all the lovely folks that are listening in. So thanks for tuning in if you're watching. And thanks for having me. So like Gary said, my name is Austin Rivers, and my fiber origin story is based in Japan, actually. So I was working on a tour when I was an actor before the pandemic. And I was performing with Disney. It's a tour called Disney on Classic. And it's 8 American singers and a 60-piece Japanese orchestra. And you tour all over Japan for about 4 months singing Disney music. I'm from Central Florida, so like that was like my bread and butter. Singing Disney music was like wearing a tux, singing on top in a stage in front of thousands of people. It was awesome. And so while you're on the tour, a lot of the distance between stops is far enough that you have to take those bullet trains, also known as Shinkansen trains in Japan. And when you're on the train, you don't always have a lot of phone service. I'm also in Japan and my phone carrier is in the US, so I don't have a lot of phone service anyways. So I was trying to think of something I could do other than just scroll on my phone and like play phone games the whole time. Because you're on the train from like 45 minutes to up to like 4 or 5 hours, depending on how far.
Okay.
So I'm on the train and I see one of my castmates knitting. And I asked her at the time, I was like, hey, that looks like a fun thing I could do on these bullet train rides. Would you mind teaching me? And she was totally down, as most crafters are, to teach the craft. No surprise there. And she took me to the equivalent of like a dollar store in Japan, kind of like a 100 yen store. And we picked up some super cheap acrylic yarn, some bamboo needles, and then she taught me how to make my first scarf. I started with 40 stitches and somehow ended up with 88. So it looked more like a shawl. That was like, it was like kind of like a flag or a shawl kind of moment. And then it was all down history from there. That was 2018.
Okay. So just really right before the pandemic.
Right before the pandemic. Yeah, it's been about 5 years now that I've been knitting.
So you're a knitter. Do you also crochet or just?
I don't. I have tried to pick it up. My boyfriend is the crocheter between the two of us. He crochets and I knit. He also knits a little bit as well, but I'm the primary. And he tried to teach me, and it didn't work very well. I can't get the tension for some reason. It's also a hard thing to learn from your partner. So maybe if I went to a class, it might be a little easier. But for now, I'm sticking with the knitting.
Nice. Yeah, I started knitting, and then right before the pandemic, took some lessons on crochet, and it's still I do it. It is always like it feels like the first time almost every time I pick it up. I have to like re kind of. But then I get into it and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so much faster.
That's what I'm always jealous because he finishes something in a night.
Here's a hat.
And I'm like, well, okay, I'll take back in 2 weeks with my hat.
Nice. So you were working as an actor and a performer prior to the pandemic. When did the idea of Knit the Rainbow sort of start to germinate, and how did that come about?
So also while I was in Japan, Japan went through the beginning of 2019 into January 2019. So while I was in Japan, I decided that I wanted to pursue a master's degree in public administration,
Okay.
which is basically a business degree, but for the public side.
Right.
So learning how to run nonprofits, how to start organizations, how to do all the fund financing and all that stuff for all that good stuff. For the public sector. So I started that right in January when I got back from Japan. I started that program,
Okay.
and that took me through the end of 2020. While I was in that program is when I decided to start a nonprofit. I was trying to figure out if I wanted to work for a nonprofit or if I wanted to start a nonprofit or what I wanted to do in the public sector. And I decided that there was a way that I could fill a hole in the market. What they
Right.
teach us in that program is that even though it's a public facing it's a public nonprofit, you still kind of have to fill a hole in the
Right.
market in order
Right.
to figure out what people need. So I did some research, and while I was in this program, I did some research and I discovered the droves of houseless LGBTQ plus youth that are living in New York City and the rest of our country. And I decided in that moment that that was the community I wanted to help. And the reason is, I didn't experience homelessness as an individual, but I did experience it with my family. When I was growing up, we were jumping from from family to family. We were living at my grandma's house for a while. We lived at my mom's church friend's house for a while. And so we were homeless for a while growing up, but I didn't have to experience that alone. I was with my family.
Right.
I had the privilege of being able to come out and be accepted by my family, but I did have some connection to that homelessness.
Sure.
And so obviously I'm also a member of the LGBTQ plus community as a gay Black man. And I also know that Black and brown folks are disproportionately affected by the housing crisis.
Right.
So all of that together, I was like, this is the community that I have to help.
Mm.
And then of course the pandemic hit.
Right.
And that made it even more important for me to do what I did to start an organization to keep people warm, because I knew that the numbers of homeless folks were going to increase,
Right.
especially among LGBTQ plus youth, because they were stuck with their families who didn't accept them. They were stuck in scenarios that were less than desirable, and a lot of folks ended up leaving during the pandemic because they were stuck in their home and they didn't have that respite of going to school or going to work where they could
Right.
escape, that the folks who weren't accepting them at home. So
Right.
all of that is kind of what led me to starting at the Rainbow in June of 2020 is when we launched, but we really started formulating it in February of 2020.
Right. And did that first year, because I know you're not just going out on the street and handing out hats and scarves and stuff. Did you,
Right.
from the very beginning, were you partnering up with agencies there in New York City?
Yeah, so our very first partner was the Ali Forney Center,
Okay.
which is the biggest nonprofit that provides the biggest nonprofit that serves
Right.
LGBTQ plus youth in New York City, and I
Right.
think actually in the country, which was amazing for us to have them as our first partner because it kind of got us in the door, and we could go, hey, we're partnered with Ali Forney
Right.
Center, so please, come and accept our garments. We promise we're legit. We check all the stuff that we send to you first, and it's nice and warm. The youth you serve are going to love it.
Yeah.
But we didn't have to do much convincing once we got Ali Forney to partner with us. So that was our very first partner, and we did our first garment collection drive specifically for the Ali Forney Center, and we
Okay.
were able to collect over 800 garments just for the Ali
Wow.
Forney Center in that
Wow.
first year, which was so awesome. I had no concept that we would accept that many garments in our first collection drive.
And may not have
Um,
had the space in your apartment to
Right, it definitely did not at the time, and I had to, we figured it out as we went. We bought the little
Right.
hotel grade laundry bins, and we figured
Sure.
out what we would do for opening days and for how to distribute and all that stuff. So we kind of just did it one step at a time, and
Yeah.
here we are now, 3 years later.
Yeah, and so talk a little bit about the growth. So you started with the one agency there in New York, and this year, what is your sort of goals and plans, and where you're operating?
Great question. So we have slowly been adding more cities to the cities that we're serving for the youth. So we started with New York City, as I said, because that's where I live. And then within the first year, we added New Jersey because we are
Mhm.
right across the
Sure.
river. So we have now two organizations in New Jersey that we serve as well. And then we added last year. So when I'm saying last year, I mean last winter. So almost a
Right.
full year ago, we added Chicago as our third location that we were adding outside of the tri-state area. That was like our first outside of the tri-state area location, which has been really awesome and so successful. And this year we added Detroit. So we are
Wow.
now going to be operating out of Detroit as well, and serving youth in the Detroit area through the Ruth Ellis Center, which we're super excited about.
Right.
So that's the places that we're serving. We now have over 25 partnerships with organizations
Oh, wow.
around those 4 different places. So we went from the very first one at Valley Forney Center. Now we have over 25, and we're hoping to get to 30 this year if we can. And it's been crazy
Yeah.
to see how many garments we've collected and distributed throughout that time.
Do you have a goal in terms of numbers of garments that you are hoping to distribute this year?
Yeah, I think our goal this year is 12,500.
Wow.
Last year we did 10, almost 10K in one year, which was
Wow.
almost, I think that tripled the amount we did the year before. So
Wow.
I
Now
have no doubt
is all that still coming through your apartment and then out back out the door?
most of it is.
Okay.
We do have some really awesome local yarn stores that serve as drop
Okay.
off locations.
Yep.
And the ones that are in our partner cities, like Chicago and Detroit, do not send their stuff to us. They actually
Okay.
keep all the stuff that they make there, and then they distribute it for us to the organizations that we're partnered with.
Oh,
So
that's
our
amazing.
4 yarn shops in Chicago, and then our 1 yarn shop partner in Detroit collect and keep and then
Right.
distribute in those areas. But still, a large majority of the stuff will come through my apartment / at the Rainbow's office here in New York City.
The life of a nascent nonprofit. It's
Right,
always
exactly. Right, and it works. It works
make do
well
with
because I have access to the office. It's right in my home, so I just come over here to the
right.
office, and then
The commute's great.
it's a great commute, right?
Um, but you also team up with local yarn stores not only in the cities where you're operating, right? You have a whole
Right.
network of those around around the country.
Yeah, I think we have, I think 26 or 27, maybe even 30 confirmed right now on our website.
Okay.
And so those are for yarn shops who are all over the country. You can be anywhere as a local yarn store and be a drop off location. Super easy to do. Basically, they just put out a box and you can put up a sign or whatever if you want.
Right.
And then you collect stuff from your local community, from your constituents that are there coming in and out of your yarn shop. And then whenever you're ready to send us a box, you send us the box to our location in New York City that the
Okay.
Rainbow can then reimburse the yarn shops for the shipping, because I know it can be
Nice.
expensive to ship big boxes of finished garments. So we're more than happy to take that cost off of our small business partners, because
Nice.
that's what we fundraise for.
Exactly.
Yeah, so if you are interested in being a yarn shop partner, all
Yes.
you got to do is reach out to us, and we would love to get you into the system. We'll add you to the website, do a little social media what am I saying, social media announcement, and
Yeah.
then you're good to go basically from there.
Okay. Excellent. Because I was someone was asking in their do they have anyone in their area? And I said not yet, but I was going to find out today from you on how a local yarn store operator could do that. And
Yeah, it's super easy. And you can always, if you know of a local yarn store that is one that you frequent and you want to see if they'd be willing, just send them our info. So
sure,
DM them on Instagram or talk to the owner there when you're at the yarn store next. And I'm sure they'd be willing to learn more and talk with you
I am
about
going
it.
to reach out to my local yarn store today and see if we can
Yes, that would be
get one
great.
going here in
I
LA.
love
So
that.
um, I assume that there are bigger plans in the long term goals in terms of expansion into other cities. How long does it usually take for you to feel like in a particular city you kind of okay, now we've got Chicago, we've done it for a year or two, and now we can kind of grow again?
Yeah, what my thinking is that we're going to add a new city once a year.
Okay.
That's kind of my ultimate goal. And the way that we do that is through those local yarn store partners. So really, as long as we have one to more local yarn stores in an area that are willing to do a little bit more work to help us actually distribute the garments and host maybe a day of action for volunteers in the local area to come and help you unpack everything and then tag it or rebox it for distribution, then it's basically as easy as that. So it really doesn't make too much work for us in New York City to expand to other cities. A lot of the work actually falls on our local yarn store partners. So we're super, super thankful for those relationships. We would not be able to expand without them.
Right.
And so that is the way that we've expanded so far, and that probably the way that we'll continue to expand until we're a big national organization and can have headquarters in New York and LA and San Fran and
Sure.
Boston and all the other cool places. So
Yeah.
um, you know,
Um, well, just on the logistics, because you talked about the distribution and the boxing and everything. With launching this accessories drive, a number of the knitters and crocheters have reached out to me with questions, and I
mm,
always go right to the website to see what I can give.
yeah.
But in terms of your collection window, when does that open for you? And then how late into the spring do you guys run before you stop and kind of regroup for the warmer months?
Yeah, great question. So for those of you who don't know at all, we only collect 6 months out of the year. And that is primarily because we operate out of my apartment and I would be drowning in finished garments all year long, if not. And also because we're not really distributing in the summer months because it's
Right.
just too hot. So we take a break and we focus on our community outreach programming over the summer. But we do start collecting on September 15th of this year. So
Okay.
that's in a few days from when this goes out, I think. So September 15th, we will start collecting, and that means you can ship stuff to us postmarked on September 15th. And we will start distributing probably next month to the organizations that we partner with.
Okay. Okay.
We like to try to distribute earlier in the winter so that we can make sure they have the stuff so that when it gets cold, they already have stuff to wear. So
Okay.
we'll probably do our first distribution in like mid to late October. And then we collect all the way through March, like March 1st is when we
Okay.
stop
Okay.
collecting. So that way we can do our last distribution in early March,
Okay.
for anyone who still needs some warm winter wear.
Sure. Well, that's great to know because I'd sort of told people to, gather everything up until December 15th and then ship it, because just to document it, because there are all these prizes and giveaways that are
Right.
happening. But I think, maybe what I'll do is just say, just document it as you go. And as you collect things, especially if you've got a local yarn store that you're dropping things off to, just go ahead and get them into the system so that they can get distributed sooner rather than later. So
Yeah, that totally works for us. Yeah, we'll do a distribution. We usually do one like every other month in the winter, so we'll do three of them. Usually we do an October distribution, December, and then like a late February, early March
okay.
distribution.
Okay. So I'll try to encourage people to go ahead and get things sent in sooner rather than later. In terms of the types of items that you collect, in terms of, I guess, what is needed most, and what would you love to see people working on?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we accept anything handmade and wearable, knit and crochet. So that is like beanies, socks, gloves, cardigans, sweaters, mittens, cowls, shawls, any of that good stuff. So as long as
Okay.
it's wearable and it's a winter item, we will take it, and it's
Okay.
handmade. And we do ask that things are unworn. So if it's something that you made, 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, and it's been worn a couple times, we don't typically accept those because the shelters ask for stuff that's unworn. They ask for
Okay.
stuff that's new. So we do ask that. So,
Okay.
we do ask that you're making stuff new for us each year. And of course, you can make stuff for us and pile it up as long as you need to, as long as it's unworn. So that's totally fine with us.
Okay.
And then we do ask that you just be careful of pet dander. So just make sure that if you're, sending us stuff, and if you have pets, I do myself, that you're, washing it or, vacuuming it, or finding a way to make sure that it's allergy free, because I'm sure a lot of the folks that we serve have different allergies.
Sure.
So just do the best that you can to make sure that when you're packaging it up to send to us, that you're trying to remove any allergens if you can.
Okay.
So yeah, anything handmade wearable. We always need more of the smaller accessories like socks, ear warmers, and mittens and gloves.
Okay.
Um, Obviously, I know as a person who loves to make socks that socks take a little longer to make. So I understand why we don't get as many of those and they're a little harder to make. But that is the actual number one item requested from homeless shelters is socks and underwear. We don't accept underwear because wearing handmade underwear isn't the most comfortable thing all the
Right.
time. So, but socks, yes. So if you love
Okay.
making socks, or if you want to challenge yourself to learn to make socks, we will take them. If you have little mistakes in there, don't worry, we'll still take them. They don't have to be perfect. As long as they're wearable and warm, we'll take your socks. So if you want to start making socks and try out a couple pairs and they're not perfect, we'll still take them.
Right.
So socks for sure.
Okay.
Mittens, also gloves and ear warmers, but we'll take anything. If you don't like
Okay.
making those things, we'll still take your other stuff.
In terms, I mean, I know on the way, and if folks don't know, on your website, you have a lot of patterns that
Hmm.
designers have donated to, if you need some inspiration. In
Yeah.
terms of sort of materials, sort of the content of the yarn,
Hmm.
sizes, colors, any guidance there in terms of what
Yeah.
most helpful?
Absolutely. So, material wise, we accept yarn, any type of yarn. So you can craft with whatever yarn you have. Doesn't matter if it's acrylic or wool or any of that stuff. A lot of the folks that we serve don't have access to regular laundry, so it's not a super huge concern for us for
Okay.
shrinkage.
Okay.
Of course, we do love when you make stuff that can be washed because it makes it so that it won't shrink. But we do
Sure.
accept stuff that is typically not only hand washable.
Okay.
If you do want to add a little tag to that, you can. And if it's a tag that just says hand wash only, we'll keep it on there. We typically remove other tags. So if you are a person who wants to attach a tag, just know that we typically remove them because we want all of our stuff to be uniform. So we always
Gotcha.
attach a tag ourselves that says "Made with Love" by an It's a Rainbow volunteer.
Okay.
And then on the back, it has information for free sexual health services for the youth.
Okay.
So if you are sending us stuff with tags, it actually creates extra work for us because we do
Okay.
have to take those tags off and then put our own tags on. So that's just something
Okay.
else to keep in mind.
Great.
Any type of fiber that you want, send it to us. Any colors, there's no color restrictions. So whatever you have around, you can make stuff with. We don't have any pattern restrictions either. So as long as it's something that you want to make, you can send it to us. And
Okay.
again, as Gary said, we do have some free patterns on our website that have been generously donated by a couple of pattern designers. And if you're a pattern designer and want to donate a pattern to us, you can always do that. Just send us
Right.
an email. We'd love to
Right.
have some more patterns, especially crochet patterns. We're low on those on the website.
Okay.
Um, and sizing wise, basically the youth that we serve are anywhere between the ages of 12 and 24. So it's a pretty wide range of
Okay.
sizes there. So really the youngest, smallest teenager up to a full size adult. So really
Okay.
any sizes we'll take as long as it's bigger than a children's size.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. You mentioned volunteers in helping you pack and distribute and things like that. Is there a way for them or people who might be in New York, Chicago, or Detroit to sort of sign up through the website to help out?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a little events page on our website that has any and every Knit the Rainbow event that's on there, whether it's in New York City, Detroit, or Chicago, or anywhere else. And that is where you can sign up for any events like our Days of Action. That's what we call them. So in New York City, those happen once a month. So we'll have 6 of them throughout the next 6 months during the winter. And that is where you come to my apartment / KTR's office and you help me to unbox the hundreds of boxes that we get every winter, sort them, put them into our big laundry grade bins, tag them, and then rebox them for distribution according to the needs that our partners have. So
Okay.
we do those once a month. So you'll definitely always find those if you're local to New York. And then if you're in Chicago, we'll probably have 1 or 2 days of action throughout the winter coming up as well to help our local yarn store partners. And then also in Detroit, we're definitely having one. I actually will be visiting Detroit in November. So if you are located in or near the Detroit area and want to come to like our official KTR launch in Detroit, stay tuned for a date in mid-November for that.
Nice. Just and it just popped into my head. If someone is not local to any of your air, are the local yarn stores partners accepting mail-in donations as well? So if I said, oh, maybe they need more in Detroit, I should send it to the Detroit store. Is that good,
So
or
right
is everything
now,
better to come through New York?
all mail-in is coming in through New York.
Okay.
And what we do is if we find out that Chicago or Detroit need more garments, we will ship them directly, or I will bring them with me when I visit those locations. So that's what we did for
Gigantic
Chicago
suitcases.
last year. Yeah, we actually rented a van, a minivan,
Oh,
and we drove the 12-hour. Is it 12? I think it's about
it
12,
is.
10 to
I've done
12
that drive
hours.
in one
Yeah.
day. It's a long day.
It's a long
Yeah.
day. Yeah, so we did that when we did our launch last year. I
Okay.
brought hundreds of garments with me from New York to Chicago to supplement what they had collected,
Okay.
which is super easy for us to do for now. I don't really like having the shipping burden on our yarn
Right.
shops just for now.
Right.
But there might be a world where in the future a couple of them elect to take some
Sink in.
mailed in donations. But for now, send your stuff to New York City or drop it off in person at a yarn store, and then we'll figure out how to get the stuff that we need to the places that we
The
need
place
it.
you need it. Okay, perfect. We talked about the events page on your website. I know you
Yes.
have your big fundraising event, annual event coming up. So why don't you tell us all about the Pearl Awards and when that's going to
Yes.
happen and how people can get involved?
Absolutely. So we're super excited to bring the Pearl Awards back. We did them for the first time last year. As Gary, of course, knows, he was one of our Pearl Award honorees at our inaugural Pearl Awards. And the Pearl Awards basically is in addition to being a fundraiser, it's also an award ceremony where we honor 4 individuals who have used their voice and platform to make the world a safer place for the LGBTQ plus and BIPOC plus communities. And when I say BIPOC, I mean Black, Indigenous people of color. Just in case you don't know what that acronym means. And then of course LGBTQ plus. Hopefully you know what that one means. That one's pretty floated around pretty often. So basically, we're honoring 4 individuals who have given back to the community. We try to honor 2 folks who are fiber-based individuals, and then 2 folks who are like LGBTQ activist individuals. Obviously, there's some crossover. Most of the fiber people that we honor are also activists, but we kind of do at least 2 of each of those categories so that we can make sure that we're, one, teaching folks about people they should follow and people that they should get to know who are in the fiber arts community, but also opening you up to people who are outside of the fiber arts community who are doing really great work in the LGBTQ plus space. So that's the Pearl Awards. It's going to be on November 9th, which is a Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's online and it's completely free to attend. So there's no reason not to come. I promise you it's a great time. It's co-hosted by myself and another co-host, which we're going to be announcing in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. And we have the honorees that all come and give speeches. We have other special guests. Last year we had Governor Kathy Hochul come and give a little 30-second speech, which was really cool to have the governor at our first Pearl Awards. We fundraised $13,000 in one night, which was crazy, not expected to do that, which really helped us to get through to this point where we are right now. You know, that money that we fundraised kind of helped us to get Knit the Rainbow through the next 6 or 7 months. So it really is so helpful for us and important for us to have this fundraising moment for us, because when we do these big fundraising nights, it really does help us over the next couple of months. You know, we don't have our regular fundraising monthly is great, but it's not enough to keep our operations going for a long period of time. So we do have to have those big fundraising events where we collect a lot all in one time. And by doing that, we have a silent auction. We have some really fun auction events, usually auction items that you can bid on, stuff that's fiber-based, stuff that's not fiber-based, stuff that's sports-based or restaurant-based or food industry-based. So we have lots of different items there. We always have a raffle as well, and you can buy your raffle tickets ahead of the event. So like I said, the event is free to attend, but if you want to buy raffle tickets, you can on our event website. So then that would be a cost for you. So that's the only thing that makes it costly, is if you buy a raffle ticket. We usually have at least 15 to 20 raffle items that we give away. So it's definitely worth it to join in, because we have about, I think we had like a little over 100 people there last year. So you have a pretty good chance of winning something if you're in the raffle. And we have different tiers for the raffle. And then there's also sponsorship. So if you're a small business owner or if you're an individual who wants to make more of an impact, you can always become a sponsor of the organization and of the event, and you get different things depending on what level sponsor you are. You know, you get a shout out on the sponsorship page, all the way up to being able to make an announcement or to give a speech at the actual Pro Awards, depending on your level of sponsorship. So all that information can be found on our website, on our events page, which is what we've been talking about. And actually, if you go to our website, it'll pop up right when you go there. We have it set up so that as soon as you visit our website, you'll get a little pop-up on the page that says, come to the Pro Awards, and it gives you all the information there.
It's a great night. It was really fun. I'm not just saying that because I was one of the awardees, but it was a really fun event. Lots of giveaways and fun things along the way. Also, if you're one of my dyer friends or maker friends and you have some things that you'd like to throw into the raffle or the silent auction, hit us.
Please send us an email or a DM on Instagram.
Yeah. But yeah, it definitely take the evening, grab a glass of wine and tune in, because there's some really amazing stuff. You'll hear more about the organization and the agencies and things that Austin's working with. So it's a really fun event. So
thanks, Gary. I always have a good time.
I think that was all I had. Is there anything that we sort of missed in terms of the Knit the Rainbow story and how folks can get involved?
I don't think so. I can, name some of the places that you can find us. So you can find us, our website is www.knitttherainbow.org. That's knitttherainbow.org, all one word, as it's a website. And then our Instagram and Facebook handles are at Knit the Rainbow Inc., so INC at the end. And then we're also on Threads, which is connected to our Instagram. So you can find us there on the Rainbow Inc. as well.
And I will link all of that in the show notes down below as well. So that will be there for folks to click through and to find you. But I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit down with me. I hope we can help you hit that. Did you mention on the Pearl Award how much you're trying to raise this year? You raised 13,000.
Yes, we're trying to raise 17.5K this year. 17.5.
So let's help them hit 17,500.
Yes.
Help them hit their 12,500 garment distribution. And if you haven't clicked on my document on my accessories drive and like all the prizes and things that are happening through that, definitely do that as well. But Austin, thank you so much for doing this and sitting down with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gary. And thanks everyone for listening.
Okay. I hope you found that informative and fun. I am just blown away by the amount of work that Austin and the team and Knit the Rainbow are able to do, and the quantity of handmade items they're able to distribute every year. I hope you will all join in for the Pearl Awards. As I said during our chat there, it was a really fun event. You pop it on your TV, grab some wine and you're knitting, and you can hear some, really meet some new makers and activists in the LGBTQ plus community, and have some fun with some giveaways and prizes along the way. So I hope you can join for that. I had a few more little Craftivism ideas that came through my profile this last couple of weeks. Most of these are local type things, but I'm sure if you reached out to them and wanted to send these items to these various locations, they would be happy to take them. So the first is another sort of accessories drive. So Hook and Needle Fiber, which is a local yarn store in Vancouver, Washington, is teaming up with NAMI, which is the National Association of Mental Illness. It's a mental health organization. I'll pop up here what it actually stands for, and I should know, but I have blanked on that. They do little holiday bags every year for clients that they serve, and Hook and Needle Fiber wants to make hats to go into those holiday bags, so you can drop off hats at their store. If you reach out to them and wanted to mail them to them, I can't imagine why they would say no. If you are local to them and want to avail yourself, they have a hat knitting machine, a Cinco knitting machine, that you can take your yarn in there and crank out some hats pretty quickly to help them fill up those holiday bags. So I think that's going to go through December 1st. The last two things are more time sensitive because they're only going through the end of this month. So a Instagram account that you should be following. It's run by a woman named Kelly Chambers. It's called Friday Morning Charity, and similar to my sort of Craftivism section at the end of the podcast, she just finds these opportunities for makers in the crafting community to make items for different organizations that are having drives of various sorts. So the one that she's working on right now is for an organization in Cincinnati that serves homeless and at-risk families called Bethany House Services. And from now through the end of September, they are trying to gather up hand-knit, hand-crocheted baby blankets. And so if you go to Friday Morning Charity, it's again linked down below, they will give you the information on where you can send those. So if you're not a hat knitter, but you love making or crocheting or knitting baby blankets, this would be a great opportunity to make a couple by the end of the month and get those off to them. And the last one is two organizations or two folks that I have mentioned before. One is Beyond Yarn, which is a local yarn store in Union, New Jersey, who does a ton of amazing community efforts to help in their community. And they have teamed up with Soap Sacks to, during the month of September, make and collect as many of the soap sacks as they can. On the Soap Sacks website, again, a link down below, you can find patterns to make them. They're basically little tiny sacks that then you put a bar of soap in, and they distribute those to homeless organizations to give out to their clientele who may not have access to soap and a washcloth for cleaning themselves up. And so they're collecting those at the store in Union, New Jersey through the month of September. So go check those three things out. And if you can, would love to see some of us be able to chip in to help those in addition to Knit the Rainbow. And with that, I think we have hit the end of this episode. I appreciate all of you taking some time out of your week to spend it with me, to see what I'm working on, to find out some ways where we can all come together to use our love of making to help make our communities better and safer places. Thank you again. If you enjoyed this content, please like, subscribe, share with a friend. We continue to try to grow this community, and that's the best way that we can do that. And I will see you probably shorter than 2 weeks. Because, I mean, like I said, I'm going to try to get one more little quick episode out before we head out on vacation. And then you won't see me for a couple weeks after that. So anyway, have a great rest of your week. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.